Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisum, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you caught last week's show, you already know that this is part 2 with world-class guitarist and artist Phil Keaggy, along with Nashville guitarist and producer Rex Paul Schnelle. These two amazing musicians have teamed up to release a kind of dueling guitars album called Illumination that includes some classic Keaggy tunes and some new ones penned just for this recording. Rex is a well-known and much-loved producer here in town who's got tracks on many major country artists, and he's an outstanding player with a kind heart and a strong love for Jesus. Phil Keaggy, of course, is a fabulously skilled guitarist and artist whose career has spanned half a century since coming to Jesus at an early age in the 60s Jesus movement. He's released an album for just about every year he's been playing, with over 50 to date, and Illumination is one that Keaggy fans worldwide will immediately love. In part 2, we pick up the conversation about the album, find out that Phil is the master of puns, and find out what's next for these guys. I was deeply impressed throughout this interview that these guys would much rather talk about Jesus than themselves, and that the lifetime of making music was much less important to them than an authentic devotion to Christ on every level. Just listen and you'll know exactly what I mean. We're up to a lot of great things at Nashville Christian Songwriters, and I want to personally invite you to check out what we offer at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. If you like this podcast, we have a lot of episodes there, an entire archive of almost 135 shows filled with information, inspiration, and interviews with some of the coolest people in Nashville. If you like what we're doing, please share it out to your social networks and help us spread the love. So, without any further ado, here's part 2 of my warm, funny, and inspiring interview with Rex Paul Schnelle and Phil Keaggy. All right, you guys, I'm sitting here with the legendary guitarist Phil Keaggy and another wonderful new friend, Rex Paul Schnelle, who has an illustrious history of recording demos for a lot of very famous people here in Nashville. And now these two guys have collaborated on a new album called Illumination that we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But I'm just fascinated, Phil and Rex, about the connection of the Holy Spirit with instrumental music. We look back in the Old Testament, and we all, many of us know the story of David playing on the harp, whatever kind of harp it was, to soothe the soul of Saul, and how God uses that. Is that kind of what you've been referring to, and what's been your experience with that?
I think so. My good friend Darren Lloyd, who road managed many years on the road with me, he told me about this one particular concert I was playing, and I'm playing and singing this song called "Can You See Me," which I wrote in 1969 with my mates in glass harp. But when we recorded the album in 1970, and I was a young believer, I changed the words to emphasize what Jesus has done for us. The Son died for you and me that we may live eternally. Through him there is a peace we can share. And but it's in a minor key, and I sang the verses and I sang the chorus, the bridge bit, and then I go into an instrumental, and toward the end of the instrumental, and I could just feel this emotion instrumentally, and I could feel it inside of me, coming out of me, and I know it's happening. I just feel it was good. And well, Darren told me after the concert, he said there was an elderly woman who got out of her seat, and she was walking back to the back of the foyer. What do you call that place?
Yeah, foyer. Yeah.
Foyer. And she had tears, and he said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Anything I can help you with?" He thought that she was ill or something. She just looked upset to him. And she said, No, it was that song. It just moved me so much. I just didn't want to make a scene crying in front of the people around me, around them. And he said, so he talked with her, and it was something, she said it was something in the music that really moved her. And I was unaware of it, of course, but I think it's that when you put your heart, you give your heart to God, and whatever you do as unto the Lord. He takes the raw material and the intention of your heart and applies it to other people's hearts and spirits. And something can happen, like you mentioned David and Saul. Just to know that it didn't depress her, but it moved her. Maybe it brought something to the surface. Who knows what it is? So there is power in instrumental music. And St. Francis has said, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. I think that's a really wonderful quote. In fact, John Mays, who produced the 220 album for me back in 1995, he put that quote in the liner notes of that album. I recall that. He was my A&R guy at the time. And so, I'd like to just move over here and just say something. Everybody talks about love, in our world today, and illumination, and revelation, and this experience and that experience, and everyone's talking about these deep things, and I'm thinking, where is Jesus? Because there's so much of an absence of the Lord Jesus in a lot of these testimonies and people's experience. I have friends who send me, links. Check this out. This is amazing. And I listen and I try to find out what it is they're getting out of it. But when I think of what all that is good is God, but not that we are God, but He is God. And He has revealed to us His Son. And in Him is the fullness of the Father and the Godhead. And so my question is, where is Jesus? Because without Him, there is really no true, deep, self-sacrificing love. That's how I feel about it, because He's the prime example of love and sacrifice. And so to me, the gospel is not just a concept. It's truly the words that He spoke in the historical account of Scripture and in the Gospels. And so I think that is a motivating factor in my life every day. And not that I'm a holy man, but I want to please the Father and be on good terms with my loving Father. And that affects how I live and how I relate to other people and how I look at music. I know it's kind of wordy and it might sound religious, but I'm not trying to be. It's just how it is.
It's a beautiful thing. I know my experience with Phil is when we just break down and say, let's run to Jesus. We're broken. We need Jesus. And his heart, his facial expression is just like, yes, and just collapses. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 talks about that we comfort one another with the comfort we ourselves receive. That happens in a special way when we gather in His name that doesn't happen when we're by ourselves. So our healing is in each other. And so much more as a musician, the instrumentalist, that actually flows in this universal language. And what Phil was saying, and here's the thing in our culture and Christianity and everything about faith, and as much as it's maligned or loved or whatever in our culture, the reality is, if there's anybody listening to this that's not a believer, that thinks Christians are just nuts, yeah, we're nuts. And we obviously talk about the experience of being a Christian, but no man can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. So, yeah, that's crazy, but I'm warning you, when He does touch your heart, we're going to be right there to catch you, because we've been slain by that same supernatural Spirit. And when we talk about musical testimony, we were, on this record, we were reimagining some of Phil's classics. And there's a song called Let Everything Else Go. And one of my favorites, and then I have my friends who are like, are y'all guys going to do that? And it's almost a sacred thing, because I remember when the Holy Spirit fell. in that song. And I go, man, we can't mess that up. And so for me, creating the production, I thought, how are we going to, you can't copy, you can't recreate that moment. But there were these moments that happened that were different than the original. And so I thought, okay, Lord, I'm going to trust you with that one. Cast that one. Throw that sail up and let that one sail, So that's where we went.
Mm-hmm. So I was playing with glass harp at this place called The Earth in San Diego in September '71, and there was this guy who was the announcer, master of ceremonies, who was the MC, and we were opening up for a group called It's a Beautiful Day, I believe. They had a hit song called White Bird, and so we did our set, and it went really well, and I think we were hot that night. We were good, and Don Absher, who's the fella who I got to know, long beard, a hippie kind of guy. He started asking questions, and I started just sharing my story about what happened to me, and he just sitting there, and it's just the two of us up in the green room, and he started weeping, and his eyes, his tears were flooding out of his eyes, and I said, "Can I pray for you?" And we got praying, and he asked Jesus into his heart, and it was his time, and it was like God was really visiting him, and so we exchanged phone numbers, and a month later he comes up to visit me where I'm staying with my brother Mike. My brother Mike lived in Newport Beach, and he brings this beautiful guitar. And he said, "I want you to have this. I got this guitar a couple of years ago. It's a Mark Evan White book." And I said, "Thank you so much." It's interesting because I had a Martin that I had loaned to a fella just previous to this tour. And he calls me up. He says, "I was in a car accident and it was completely destroyed. There's nothing to give to you." 16 years later, he came to me and he said, "My conscience can't let me bear this any longer." He came up to me 16 years later and said, "I hawked it, for drugs." And I said, "I forgive you." It really set him free. But he carried that guilt of that for all those years. But God gave me this guitar through this fella, And so some years pass. I use it. You could see it on the Flip Side album cover, and one side of the album has the Les Paul. One side has the acoustic Mark White book guitar. And so about mid-'80s, I'm having some troubles paying some taxes and stuff like that. And so I set out to sell a few guitars, and I'm playing a gig at this music store in Santa Ana. And I've got the Mark White book there. I hate to do it, but I'm going to sell this guitar. And I'm thinking to ask a certain sum for it. Nothing too outlandish. But this fella comes up to me and he says, "What are you asking for the White book?" I said, "Thinking about $1,000. Here's a guitar that was given to me as a gift, and I'm going to sell it, He said, "I'd love to buy it from you." I said, "Fantastic." And I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "My name's White Book. I built that guitar." Mark White Book. I said, "I tell you what, can I just give it to you?" And I told him the story. I said, "This guitar was given to me by somebody. I'm not going to sell it to you. You built this guitar. You made this guitar. You created this guitar." And he said, "No, it would give me great satisfaction to give you this money. I'd love to have it. I don't even own a guitar I've built." He quit building guitars for a while, I think for medical reasons or something, health reasons. And so that's where it ended up. And it's interesting because just 2 years ago, I got a text message from a good friend of mine, Jim Cole, who's a songwriter. And he said, "Hey, Phil, I was out in California. I was visiting Mark White book, and he restored that guitar. And it looks just like the day it was made, And he plays it. He loves that guitar. And he showed me a picture of him playing it. This is a guitar that goes back 46 years, 48 years, okay? 48 years ago, it was given to me. Wow. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? The creator created this guitar and then redeemed it back, bought it back. And that's like, it was like what the Lord has done with us, created us and bought us back, and it was pretty cool story.
Mic drop. So, amazing story.
God bless Mark Whitebook, by the way. If I don't think he's listening, but if he is, appreciate you, man.
Yeah. We're going to take just a quick break and talk about something that I think is going to be very valuable for you as a Christian songwriter. So check it out.
Do you feel like God's given you a bunch of songs, but you don't know what to do with them? Do you feel like you've got a real call on your life to write, but you're clueless about where to start? Or maybe you've got writer's block and you're wondering if you'll ever get the creative juices flowing again. Well, we've got you covered with NCS membership. NCS membership is all about community and how to grow in this calling you feel deep inside to be heard. We get it. We know that you just want to honor God with your talents and be a good steward of what He's given you. And that's why NCS membership could be your next right step to grow, learn, be challenged, get connected, and ultimately fulfill your dreams to glorify God and reach others with the same passion you feel. It's designed to help you tell your story and to reach listeners who will love your songs. With your NCS membership, you'll receive 24/7 access to valuable masterclasses on topics such as modern hymn writing, worship writing, song form, lyric development, and recording home demos, as well as discounts for other NCS products and a deep connection into a community of creatives who get you. There are a lot of songwriters out there, so you need to be the best you can be to stand out, be heard, and become the songwriter you were born to be. Just go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com now to check out all the great benefits of becoming part of a decidedly Christian community of songwriters from all over the world. NCS membership, your next right step to being heard.
Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode. Well, let's talk a little bit about the new album. You guys have this brand new album out, Illumination, your first collaboration, even though you've known each other for a long time. And we talked earlier in the show about how this has kind of come about. So talk maybe about your the fusion of styles and kind of what all is embodied in this album for you guys.
I think I can connect it to a lot of fans have been kind of clamoring for Phil to do a rockier album, maybe more, of that type of progressive rock record, and me as a fan as well, and then me as an artist praying, oh God, that would be great to do a project with Phil, and so it fused into just exactly that. And I just tell the story that as every song we would do would get better and sonically would be so pleasing that we'd move on to the next. And then we began to talk about maybe redoing some classics and see how that would turn out. And I think that Full Circle was the first one we tried of those that came out sounding really, really good. And then in that process as well, of writing the lyrics, it's funny, when we came together, started writing the lyrics, in my mind, I didn't know if it was going to be a outright Christian, project, or if we were going to write story songs or whatever. But it was soon quite evident when we would pull out devotionals and Bibles that that's just what we need to do. It was so clear. So to me, it was God superintending those writing sessions and kind of directing where we were going. And so after that, I just relaxed and had fun, and it was so joyous too to be able to play and then hear back, let's say, two different guitar solos. I would play one and Phil would play one, and they were very different stylistically and emotively. I think Phil, as a producer and as a guitar player, is better at listening and then creating a new voice as an answer, whereas I just kind of play what I play, but he can actually find something and then create this other identity, maybe a different pickup position or a melodic figure or something, and then even speak into what I play. One example is when he would say, Rex, slow down, emote, play something more, whatever it would be melodically. And so those are just little things that came together that to me made every moment really, you can listen to it over and over and glean something new creatively, melodically, musically, every time you listen to it. And for me, that's a reward.
So you guys wrote a bunch of songs together, but we are enjoying some new clothes on some old friends, maybe, with some of the songs from your past, Phil.
Yeah. You mentioned Let Everything Else Go, which is a song this is the fourth recording I've done. The first was on Town to Town, then again on, was it Live from Kegworth, a little home production I did. And then one was on Way Back Home, which was an acoustic album, a lot of devotionals in that particular album from mid 80s. And then again on this album, it's because the song is often requested in concert, and it's simple, but it has a lot of heart. And then there's Spend My Life With You, which is a tune that I wrote initially as a lullaby to our firstborn, Alicia, our first daughter. And but then it took on a deeper meaning regarding our relationship with our father. I wrote it as a young father, but then it gave me more understanding of the Father's love for us. And then there's Time, which oftentimes people requested as an old rocker from the 70s. But I actually made a certain point I wanted to make in the chorus of the song, and that is, but here's good news, Jesus died for you. He died to make us free or to set us free, because I don't want to leave people with the sense that there's no hope. There is hope. There always will be hope, and the mercy of the Lord endures forever. That's one of the highlights of the scriptures that I want people to understand. When he says, I will love you with an everlasting love, that means something. So I'm one of those believers who believes in hope against hope, So is that how it goes? Hope against hope?
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's a good album. There's a few emphasis in the album about how we care for our fellow man. And I think the album opens up with a song called Don't Hold Back, ends with a song called The Day of the Lord, the album, and they're both emphasizing how we look at our fellow man and our responsibility to not just live for ourselves. And then everything in between is proclamation and celebration. Yeah. And rejoice.
The only thing the Lord asks us when he comes to see us is, you fed me. You clothed me. You visited me in prison. You visited me when I was sick. That's going to be the test. Lord, when did we? He says, when you did it to the least, you did it to me. And so, especially in ministry, don't ask the Lord to come bless what you're doing. Go where it's already been blessed. Go to the poor. Go to the prison. Go to go where the Lord already is, because that's already blessed. You don't have to create something that, God has to come move in. Go where he's already moving.
So where did the title come from, Illumination?
One of the phrases in I Believe, the tune called I Believe, healing hands, new creation, holy light, illumination. Remember when it all began, Spirit fell by your command. Your name is love, your word is true, living hope because of you. We're alive, and then the chorus is I believe, and I have a reason to live. That's where that came from. We just lifted that word out of that lyric that we wrote together. Yeah. So
kind of triggered some of the graphics idea, and
Yeah, it did. It's real stunning, actually.
Thanks.
Yeah. And my son Ian, who is a producer, writer, very, very talented young man, he took the photo.
Oh, good job.
He's got a great eye for that stuff.
Well, it's really a great record, and I'm an old rocker myself, and
Thank you.
I just found myself just reliving some glory days in that. And the vocals sound great, you guys. Everything about it is just amazing, as we would expect. So, and you're doing something kind of a little bit of a throwback with bringing out some vinyl on this record. What prompted that for you guys?
It's difficult to get vinyl in small quantities, but we did find a place, and we, Phil's a vinyl guy, and my turntable's broken, so I can't say that I am, but I love vinyl. But as an extra added, something that the fans would have something special and experience, and indeed the response from various fans said, "I can't wait to vinyl." And
we only had 100 made.
Yeah, we had 100. Yeah,
it's small beans.
It's the souvenir edition, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah. Well, if you had one thing you'd say to aspiring songwriters out there, I mean, you guys have had amazing, lengthy careers, worked with the best of the best. You are the best of the best. What would you say to someone who's completely outside the bubble and they just dream of getting a song recorded one day?
Nothing's stopping you. Everybody's doing it. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's as a songwriter, and you have to write and write and write. You think you write the best song, let it go, write the next best song. Don't think and hold on to those songs and don't write anymore. But don't settle. Don't settle for a rhyme. Don't settle for anything. Make it the best it can be. And a little tip for lyrics: write stream of consciousness phrases. Don't stop to make them rhyme. Don't stop to do anything. Write about 20 or 30 on a certain topic. Then later come back and start to pull the rhymes. What you'll find is your word flow may be a little bit better.
Also, collaboration can help. I would not have a new album if it weren't for Rex. I'm at a low point in terms of lyrical songwriting. He helped bring things out of me. I was incapable, or didn't know if I even had the drive to do it. So the album is a big surprise to me, actually. It really is.
Wow.
So will you be touring and presenting these at all, or is
not necessarily?
Not really.
No. We the album I did 3 years ago called All at Once, we having a booking agency and everything, we couldn't get more than 2 band dates. And this is a band album, so it's not likely.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I will speak into the new music economy a little bit. Really effectively, it's taken away the incentive to be able to pull off a really high-quality musical production like this. There's just not a budget for it, and music has become wallpaper. The importance of it is really diminished. Not to say that there aren't fans out there, but because the revenue stream has been taken away that support being able to do something like that, it's really difficult to bring it to market. So,
yeah, it's not easy, Yeah. But I had my day, It's just nice to be able to still make music, and most of my people that follow my music, they're older too, They're celebrating their grandkids, but they still like music, So it's an odd thing, the creative side of it, and then the logistic side of it that has to do with marketing and everything. But we are being encouraged by the excitement over this album, partly because it was well done, and I can vouch for that. And UTR, Under the Radar, I just found out today, they listed this album is in the top 20. Is that correct? Yeah.
And so far of 2019, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty nice,
Yeah.
Yeah, who'd have thunk?
Well, congratulations on that. And it's going to be on my playlist. It's a great record. Congratulations on amazing careers. And, maybe the best is yet to come.
Thanks, John.
So,
appreciate that.
For having us, really.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Treat.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Hey everybody, I hope that you know by now that we here at Nashville Christian Songwriters are all about empowering you to fulfill your call to become a great Christian songwriter. And the best thing that I think you can do is to join a like-minded community of believing songwriters dedicated to fulfill that call. So I want to invite you to jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, even right now, to check out what we call NCS membership, where you can go deeper into all the resources that will kickstart your creativity, unlock hidden songwriting abilities that you didn't even know you had, and take some important steps towards becoming the songwriter that you were born to be. I believe that you were born to be heard, and NCS membership helps you get there. I'll see you next time.